Welcome back to Daily Persuasion. I am Joshua Lisec, your host. I am the New York Times bestselling author and co-author, as well as a professional book ghostwriter of more than 95 nonfiction titles. I'm also a professional certified hypnotist. And it's through this one-of-a-kind lens we look at the day's news and antics. And I better teach you how to influence the VIPs of your own life and career. I want to talk to you about this little organization that was known as, in 2017, 2018, 2019-ish, the Intellectual Dark Web, IDW, now regarded as the Intellectual Dork Web. It all began on the center left, let's say, politically speaking, in the United States, amongst commentators, politicians, authors, philosophers, professors, etc. And what we observed during that period was, whoa, the left is going too far. Because following the election of President Donald Trump, the 45th president at that time, now number 47, what was observed was extreme negativity towards Trump voters, Trump supporters, and the Trump administration. We saw lawfare. We saw disobedience within the executive branch to orders and commands of President Trump. Joshua Steinman famously blew the whistle on these antics, pointing out how an order would come down directly from the president, and low-level employees would just say, no, I disagree with him. I'm not doing that. But that's your boss. No, I don't want to. That's mean, racist, bigot. I don't gotta. Okay? That's what was called the deep state, by the way. So if you imagine an organizational hierarchy chart, an org chart, you've got the boss at the top, and then you have the various directors and vice presidents and managers and so on and so forth all the way down. Then you get deep into the organization, deep into the org chart. That's the deep state. You don't necessarily know who these people are, but many of them were Obama administration holdovers and even Bush administration holdovers. So they're that uniparty that it's called. So it was rather a literal, observable phenomenon, the deep state that resisted President Trump during the 45th presidency. Now, I've mentioned the IDW. It was in the context of observing all of these things: violence towards Trump supporters, canceling them, getting their bank accounts banned, arresting them, eventually having political imprisonment, targeting of characters like Steve Bannon, who served 4 months in prison over absolute nonsense. And by the way, he was put in prison by the man, Merrick Garland, who had done the very thing himself, serving no prison time, that he took Bannon to prison for. This is what they do every single time, like I famously say with Jack Posobiec in our New York Times bestseller, Unhuman's book, which, as you know, was the best-selling book of the most consequential summer in American history. And the book Unhumans explained and predicted all of it. It didn't just predict, though. It prescribes what to do about it. And that is the special section of Chapter 12, Chapter 13 of the book. And if you look at Chapter 13 now, you will see the Trump administration doing, line by line, everything we recommend. J.D. Vance famously, of course, endorsed the book for obvious reasons. The IDW, back in 2017, 2018-ish, was a group of reasonable liberals. Many called themselves classical liberals. And it's, I believe in freedom and freedom of speech, and, I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal, ha, 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 but the government has a place, and blah, 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 and look, I'm kind of woke, wokeness is okay. A little bit of woke's fine, not too much. We need affirmative action. These are the sorts of things that these people said. Now, what's interesting is I would gather millions of Trump voters. I don't know the precise number, but I'm going to hypothesize educated and informed speculation from now on. This is the rest of this episode. I believe that the IDW created millions of Trump voters accidentally. One might consider them controlled opposition, especially with how they were propped up by the mainstream, massive book deals, multi-million-dollar book deals, supreme positioning across all social media, and the YouTube algorithm and recommendations, because they ultimately turned people away from Trump for 2020. But many ultimately ended up over here voting for Trump, as I did, and doing what I could to persuade people to vote for him in 2024. Because it was a ride or die moment, like Scott Adams famously said, and that it was time to risk it all, because this is too important. We got to save the country from, unhuman activity. Again, if you want to know what was going on during the Biden administration, read the dang book. Read the dang book on humans. Now, the IDW, my own transformation, sort of the epicenter character was Sam Harris, the new atheist, author of a number of books and host of a podcast called Waking Up. He was famously, aggressively anti-Trump, even to the extent of being perceived as pro-violence in the context of his opposition to Trump, doing whatever it took to defeat Donald Trump. Trump derangement syndrome, you might call it, an original character of TDS. But he was close to, in the IDW network, Eric Weinstein, and of course his brother, Brett, who of course found themselves, so I'm describing the sort of the IDW network, the Weinstein brothers with Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin, therefore, the Daily Wire character, Ben Shapiro. At the same time, through this, of course, you have Jordan B. Peterson. So right there, I've just described, save for one person, Joe Rogan, obviously, that was a sort of IDW. And all the various characters that they hosted, that they have interviewed, that they approved of, that they promoted. For example, Brett Weinstein's wife, Heather Heying, the professor and researcher, the author of Gad Sad, and of course, Scott Adams. And it was me from October-ish, September-ish 2016 until early 18, so about a year and a half period, 2018, that year and a half period, I was being inculcated with the intellectual dark web because I recognized, shoot, the left is going way too far on this. This is like wrong, was my little liberal brain at that time realized. And it was in October of 2016 that I teamed up with a Canadian filmmaker, and I was the executive producer of a film called Better Left Unsaid, which featured a number of intellectual dark web characters like Steven Pinker and James Lindsay, now of the sort of woke right, whom we're kind of joking as being diet woke or woke light, who is effectively saying that all conservatives need to be classical liberals. You need to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal in order to be a good little conservative, a GLC. So he's sort of like also it's a bit of a sort of anti-Christian, where we have to stay away from Christian teaching, Christian doctrine, Christian beliefs. Otherwise, you're a Christofascist. You're a Christofascist. You're a Christian nationalist. Right, and this sort of stuff that they do. But the IDW experience lays out how to persuade someone to change their mind very slowly. Think of it as boil the frog, or others like to think of it glacial persuasion. So the glacier persuasion is, I am now, if you saw my I have a number of hit pieces, they're all hilarious. I've been smeared and smashed in the New York Times a number of times, in The Guardian a number of times, in obviously the Daily Beast, Vox, Raw Story, MSNBC, CNN. Pick your network, I'm probably in there. Huffington Post, obviously. The socialist magazine, Current Affairs, called me Trump World's favorite writer. The Guardian has referred to me as a ghostwriter for right-wing influencers, which of course is correct. And someone once called me the third most influential Republican in Ohio, after obviously J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy. That's the sort of thing that I don't necessarily want to advertise too much. One day someone will find this video, and that will be an interesting day. And you know who that someone is. Glacial persuasion is this immense force of change that moves so slowly that at any moment it looks static. If you were to look at me in April of 2018, or of July 2017, or October 2016, it would look like the same guy with the same belief system. I was an atheist, and I was openly liberal, but I was changing immensely. In the same way that great boulders are turned into tiny little smooth pebbles, so small that to a child they look like candy. They're not candy, kids. And that is glacial persuasion. That's glacial persuasion. And the IDW, I believe, accidentally did it. So if you want to bring an ice age transformation to anyone in your life, think of it, what is the closest belief to theirs that you agree with that you could convince them of? That's important to you. Well, we share that too. Okay, sure you share that. Well, what about this belief as well? Doesn't that seem reasonable given what you already believe? It does. A few months later. Well, what about this one? Wow, that's not right, is it? No, you agree. That's not right. Well, did you see this? A few months later, you say. And then a number of years pass. The landscape of their mind is completely changed. The glacier melts, and they had no idea what you were up to the entire time. And yet, they agree with you. This is about what 12 million American conservative men who are married to liberal women need to be doing. And they need to be doing it soon. Send this to someone you know who is married to a liberal, or is dating a liberal, or is otherwise stuck with a liberal. You just might save their life.